Hey, I'm Brian Van, SportbikeTrackHere.com. We're here for another episode of how you get your boss to put the parts on your motorcycle. Today, we're gonna do the Cox Racing radiator and oil cooler guard set install on my man Corey's 2016 BMW S1000RR. Okay, so let's first start with the product. Why do you want to put this on there? Well, you've got these giant radiators and oil cooler guards hanging out, and then you have that front tire right in front of it. The tires get warm and hot, the tires pick up rocks, can fling them into, right, the radiator, the oil cooler guard. Road debris that's flung up by somebody in front of you can also make its way in that area. You get an impact, you put a hole in a radiator, you are done. Coolant's going all over the place, maybe you crash your bike. So these are a great idea. A lot of safety, a little peace of mind. Now, to install it, right? The guy who owns Cox Racing, Andrew, does a great job, right? Everything's complete. It is very well thought out. There are full instructions, well written, with lots of pictures. And you guys know me well enough by now to know, yeah, I'm only gonna pay attention to some of that stuff, right? Not all of it. So, to begin with, right, for disassembly purposes only, we need to get these lower side fairings off, both sides, right, some of the internal fairings here. I'm gonna use my DeWalt, don't tell Corey, right, he's gonna find out when he watches the video, but this is just gonna help me get it apart a little bit quicker, right? Save a little bit of time. Pay attention to the fasteners, where they go, because they do use different length fasteners in different positions. Personally, I would not reinstall, okay, using this method. Taking it apart that way, that's one thing. Really not a lot of risk, okay, per se. But if you're gonna screw it back together using the screw gun, you're definitely gonna wanna use caution. Up front here, these are a little more challenging to get to. You're not gonna get the DeWalt in there, so I'm gonna go ahead and undo these. I've already taken a few off on the clutch side of the bike, so that's why you saw it kind of dip down a little bit. When we come back, I'll have this off and we'll be ready to dig a little deeper into our radiator guard install. Okay, lower fairings are off. We do need to get some access to this area right here, so I'm going to begin disassembling the upper portion of this right side here. I think I said it before when we did the fender eliminator that, you know, this is really the first time that I've really done any work on one of these BMW S1000RR bikes, and they are put together very different as compared to the Japanese stuff, you know, that most of us are used to. So I want to exercise some caution as I disassemble a lot of this, because at the end of the day, this is not my bike, this is Corey's bike, and I really don't want to go cracking side panels in half while we install his radiator guard set. So you'll notice I'm a little more cautious than I normally would be. Come in here under the release tang, right, just lift up on that, and at the same time just put a little outward pressure. Off comes the side panel. We'll repeat this process on the other side, of course. You know, we needed to get some access to this upper portion of the radiator to use the cable tie. Do the same thing we did on the other.
is going to be just on the inside right here.
Just with the same process we did on the other side to get your turn signal, like that. And both the side panels are off the motorcycle. So end of the day, to get access, really wasn't all that bad. And now we've got a really good clear shot here at the radiator to get the guard installed. Per the instruction, you see I kind of already slid this thing up in here, right? Just kind of taking a look, mocking it up. Now we're going to get the radiator guard prepared for installation, okay? He has included, I say he, I'm of course referring to the dude who owns the place, Andrew, some foam spacer pads. And if you want to zoom in there, Steve, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there should be a total, looks like, of 10. And we're going to install them on the radiator and the oil cooler guard as shown in the image. When we come back, we'll have that done, and we're going to start putting this thing back together. Okay, I've got all the foam pieces on there, as outlined in the instructions. Now, we need to remove the mount bolt from both sides, right and left. I've already done the clutch side. Okay, so we're just over here now. It connects the oil cooler to the radiator itself. The way he's got the guard designed, it's going to be captured in between the two, right? This is for the radiator guard here. I'm going to go ahead and slide this in now. At the end of the day, you could remove this fairing, this little nose piece too, but you know what, I'm just going to leave that in place because I think I can get around that pretty easily. You do want to be careful with the fins on the radiator. You want to try always not to damage those during any type of service work. The fins are a key component to the cooling system. You damage those, and at the end of the day, the radiator, every time you bend some fins over, right, the radiator loses a little bit of effectiveness. Come over to the other side. Let's get this between there. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm not going to run the fasteners down all the way. But we're going to go ahead and just get those started on both sides. Like so. We'll run them back down. After the fact, now the cable ties. Okay, we're going to use those here at the top of the radiator. You can see the diagram, and it indicates how they want you to do that. Okay, so come over here, and we're going to feed this in. It's effectively what you're doing is you are passing the cable tie, right, through the fins in the radiator. And then there's a hole that is put in the top of the oil guard, or I'm sorry, the radiator guard up here, purposeful, right, to capture this cable tie. So we're gonna kind of get that slid through there. And once we have that fed through, we'll be able to circle it back around. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and grab onto that and give that a tug, like so. Just kind of get that started, go over the other side, repeat the process. To gain a little more access here, we'll just thread out the fasteners that hold the coolant overflow bottle in place, right? Create a little space like so. It's just going to allow me to get a little bit closer to that right here. And we'll repeat the same process that we did on the other side. Okay, just get that pulled right through. And pull this up here so we can get to it and slide it through. And then we're going to be in a position where we can start to snug things up a bit, right? So now the radiator guard itself, that is firmly held into position. We're going to begin to reassemble some of the pieces here. Start with the overflow bottle. Put that back in position like so. These fasteners are going into a plastic side tank. Okay, so I want you to be really cognizant of that when you put this back together, okay? Watch your fasteners. Make sure everything is going back together nicely. And there's no need to torque down on this really hard, okay? Just enough. That's definitely one of those areas, you make a mistake there, you can do yourself some real harm moving forward. Okay, now onto the actual oil cooler guard itself. We need to get the retainer that's down there removed, and this is like a modified, get this like an E-clip it looks like, and it has an edge on it like so. Okay, so I got that pulled out. And we've got the bracket here. There is the spacer. Now I need to release the lower mount from that oil cooler guard. There's a nice boss here that you can put a little pressure on with a screwdriver so you're not damaging the oil cooler at all. Like so. Okay, so there, slide that out of the way. Now we are able to slide the oil cooler guard in place, and that lower mount is going to serve as a critical part of the retention system for this oil cooler guard, right? So slide that up over the peg like so, and then we will dip that back into mount just like that. Same thing we did here with the radiator guard. We need to secure the oil cooler and the guard together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of the supplied cable ties, and I'm going to pass them through go ahead and pass the supplied cable ties through the top of the bracket, like so. I'm going to fold it over the top of the oil cooler. I'm actually not passing through the fins on this. I was able to find a pretty nice spot here to use. I think it's a kind of a cleaner job, so I'm going to do that instead. The way they have this design, this should work out pretty nicely, actually. Keep it. Okay, so I'm just pulling it through like that. And then we'll fold it over the top. You don't want to get this caught up in the cooler lines at all. You don't want to create any restrictions with anything that has the oil flowing through it. It'd be a big problem, so watch that. And let's get this in place a little bit. I'm not going to tighten them all the way. I want to put the fastener back in the bottom first. And that'll have us in position so I can just snug it up all the way. We're going to change this washer and use the one that is supplied within the kit. The tolerance needs to be opened up a little bit because we've added that layer there with the oil cooler guard in place, and we need to accommodate for that. So that would be the reason for that. Get the washer up in place. You want to make sure that you have the washer installed. You don't want to put the E-clip in there without having the washer in place. And sure you find the groove, like so. Get that to lock in nicely. I need to get that up on there just a little bit more. Looks pretty good. At the end of the day, to be quite honest with you, I think this E-clip, boy, I mean, sure it's necessary. I guess you could argue it's necessary, but the reality is the way the thing is installed, all it's really doing is kind of preventing a bunch of back and forth motion, so really not a big deal. Go ahead and once we've got that E-clip in place, we can now begin putting this back together. We will tighten up those cable ties. While we're doing this, give them a little trim, double check everything, and then we can get the fairings back on the motorcycle and wrap this up. Okay, we're gonna reinstall the fairings. This is all in there, it's all tucked in nicely, right? Double check, triple check, make sure everything's good to go before you just bolt everything back on. Like I said, with the fasteners that hold the overflow to the radiator, the same is going to hold true for the ones that mount the oil cooler to the bottom of the radiator. Plastic tank on the radiator, there is no need to go bananas when torquing that on there, right? You don't want to damage the tank. That would be a big problem. Let's get our turn signals plugged back in. Push in until you hear a nice positive click. We're going to go ahead and lift the fairing up into place. Slide all the tags in. We've got a couple of Christmas tree style clips back here that pass through the rubber grommets. Boom, boom. We're going to hit those. All right, and that's the right place to start with that. Now we can get the fasteners and begin to run all those back in place. Double check, right? Make sure that you're putting the right things back in the right spot.
This probably in place, just maybe a little bit fast forward stuff.
Push that in, make sure you have a good positive engagement. Double routing of all the overflow hoses, make sure we're not going to be pinching anything. And then, just as we showed you on the other side, right, and this is pretty basic stuff, slip it into position. In the grommet it goes. And let's grab our fasteners. You do want to make sure too that, you'll see we have some clear plastic washers, right, that go over the fasteners. The concept there is pretty simple stuff. Just trying to protect the bodywork, right, from the fasteners. So you want to make sure those are all in place still, right?
Tight.
End of the day, I'd say this is a project I think most riders, they could tackle themselves. You know, it's not put yourselves in a position where you've got a big rush, you're getting ready for the big ride, something like that, and you got to be done in a half an hour. That probably would be a mistake, but end of the day, very basic tools. You know, we're talking about a pair of side cutters and a T25. It's going to get you through that, and you're going to find that in most, you know, common tool sets realistically at this point. So I don't really see anything here that would indicate to me that this is beyond the scope of your average enthusiast. Okay. You run these down, once again, be just really, kind of cognizant of the shoulder of the fastener. Make sure it passes through the hole in the bodywork so that you're not putting any pressure, right, on the bodywork itself, not catching it as it passes through. Double check all those, and we'll be ready to go grab that lower. You can see I when I took that off, maybe it was a little bit different. I was able to just leave them essentially together, okay, almost like a race lower, and slide it into place. Go ahead and dip that through like so, and I'm going to bring it up here into position, and then what I'm going to do is just effectively I'm going to use a couple of the rearward most fasteners, okay, to just hold it in place. And there's a couple you can see here that are using a larger shoulder. Those are right here, okay. They pass through these rubber grommets, so those are going to be a great choice to get this thing to hang on both sides, right. I'm not going to tighten that down all the way.
I'll let this one in position too. On the other side.
Now let's not go calling Corey and telling him that I was using the DeWalt, right? I'm gonna try to avoid that coming up in conversation. Might freak him out just a little bit. All right, and pull this all up into place. A couple of tabs this needs to go through, so make sure you catch all those. Get it up in position like so. Same deal as on the other side. We've got the two fasteners that use the shoulder. Those are going to go right there. The most important thing with this bike and the bodywork, it's going to be your fasteners. Pay attention when you take them out. Pay attention when you put them back in. Make sure you put the right ones in the right spot. You can see here, unshouldered. Shoulder. Effectively look at the bodywork. Look to see if there is a hole that is large enough for that shoulder to pass through, right? How that works is the shoulder itself is what's going to tighten down on that retainer on the inside, that threaded retainer. You're not actually putting pressure on the bodywork and pulling it against the inner fairing. If you don't do that, you put an unshouldered one in the wrong place, you could actually crack the fairing. And I promise you that is not something that's going to be on the top of your list of things to do. In this case, the shouldered fasteners, they're all utilized in these upper bolt holes, right? So just kind of run through those real quickly. And then one more down here, also shouldered. There is two that are on the bottom, right? I'm gonna go ahead and just tighten that one up. There's really no reason to revisit that. Okay. Now the others.
So.
I will repeat this process on the other side. So when I come back, this part, this is already gonna be done, right? It's all gonna be back together. It is gonna be ready for Corey to jump on this thing and head on out of here. But before we leave you, we'll bring this project home and wrap it up. Okay, it is installed. Man, Corey really needs to keep his bike a little bit cleaner, right? I'm gonna have a talk with the kid about that because the boss is gonna work on the bike. The bike should be a little bit cleaner, in my opinion. Like I said while I was installing it, I mean, this isn't really over most people's head. I don't feel there's no fluids involved. right? You don't have to disassemble the entire front end of the motorcycle. And BMW does a really nice job. The way this comes apart and goes back together, it's not that difficult. The 25 Torx, right? I think there might have been a 30 over here on this side. Basic stuff, side cutters, you're good to go. Of course, Andrew does a nice job designing the kits. They go right on, and these are really important. This isn't like, you know, a blingy accessory add-on. This can be the difference between sitting on the side of the road with coolant spraying all over the place and not. Good for racers, good for street riders, not real expensive, easy install, good directions. Available for most models out there, right? The BMW, right? We've done Yamaha installs, many different bikes. Look to our website, www.sportbiketrackgear.com, and find one for your bike. Thanks for watching. I'm Brian Van, sportbiketrackgear.com.